Well, hello there. Welcome into a Thursday edition of Drive Time Sports. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of this program, which is 2 hours, because we have Avs and Jackets coming up at 5 o'clock from our friends at Altitude. Plenty of time to get done what we want to get done today. Take your thoughts at 719 24/7 1313. Let's start with some hoops, shall we? Stop me if you've heard this one before. That was Altitude Radio on the call. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? One night after what happened against Minnesota, again a Westbrook steal, again a missed layup, and again the Nuggets lose. Now, to be fair, there was still plenty of time left in that game last night against San Antonio for the Nuggets to recover and win the game, so it wasn't quite as dramatic as the Minnesota game, but still felt like deja vu all over again. And on top of it, Russell Westbrook, again, for the second consecutive night, decided that his media responsibilities were optional. Did not talk to the media again after last night's game. This is a textbook example of how to overstay your welcome. One night, okay, emotional game, don't want to say something that you'll regret. I don't think it's a good look particularly. I think it's better if you just nip it in the bud immediately, answer the tough questions, move on. But it's Russell Westbrook, certainly not the first athlete to escape out the back door before the media is allowed into the locker room. But back-to-back nights, you kind of got to talk about it, right? It's going beyond this is a bad look if for two consecutive nights you have kind of the same circumstances and, again, refuse to speak to the media. I want to know how long, because this is when you don't speak to the media for two consecutive games, you have to start to wonder these things. When will Russell Westbrook speak again? We have to wonder this. What circumstances do we have to wait till he plays a perfect game? I mean, the guy had 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. I would say that there would be more questions with a positive spin on them than negative ones, given the performance that he had last night. Probably he disagrees with me, because why wouldn't he want to answer questions about nearly a 30-point triple-double? Do we have to wait till he hits a game-winning layup before we can hear from him again? Or are we just never going to hear from Russell Westbrook again? This is where the saying the cover-up is worse than the crime comes into play. Avoiding talking about it only makes it worse. Own up to it, vow it won't happen again, move the story along. Russell Westbrook's not moving the story along. He's compounding the issue. By not talking about it, now you're making this new arc off of the already previous arc of Russell Westbrook blew it against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now you're making this new arc of Russell Westbrook won't talk to the media. and you're dragging it through another 24-hour news cycle. But this has been well documented as a part of the Russell Westbrook experience. 2019, while he was a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, refused to answer questions from one particular Oklahoma City beat writer. 2022, while in LA as a member of the Lakers, confronted a reporter after a press conference when he asked what needed to change about the Los Angeles Lakers. Both times, this coincided with the beginning of the end of Russell Westbrook in an NBA city. He was out from Oklahoma City that following offseason. With the Laker thing, he was dealt midway through the next season. He is a player that over the course of his career has been combative with the media. He's had this desire to control the conversation. But this time he's trying a new tact in all of this. And I think this way is going to be far less effective, if you can even say those other two instances were effective. Because in the vacuum that his silence is creating, it gets filled up with conversations like this one. This would not be the way I think anyone wants this thing to end in Denver. And you only have a couple of years. We're not talking about Russell Westbrook playing for Denver for the next 10. Okay, it's a short time. It's a couple of years. And this is the way that he wants it to end. He was received as, he was viewed as a huge get by this franchise. Remember when the buildup? Right? You have to think about it. The Nuggets are an organization that have never, and I mean never, been able to lure a free agent with any level of brand awareness. The biggest free agent get that this team has gotten in its history is Paul Millsap. And when they got him, they had to bring out a pep band in order to celebrate it. That's how big of a deal it was that Paul Millsap was signing with the Denver Nuggets. This doesn't happen for the Nuggets to sign a free agent that even casual basketball fans go, I know that guy. Nuggets fans loved that Russell Westbrook was coming in. People like me in the media touted the addition. Thought it'd be a good fit. And it has been a good fit. You could argue that in the time that Jamal Murray's been out, when it's been Russell Westbrook running that two-man game with Nikola Jokic, it's about as productive and efficient as Russell Westbrook has been at any point in his career. Does he want to give that up? The fans, the media have defended him against those big old meanies in the Laker fan base. He's starting to burn bridges again with another NBA city. Michael Malone the other night after the Minnesota game said he would want Russell Westbrook to know that the locker room has his back. And certainly the media is a boogeyman for many professional athletes, so I think that his team would have his back. But that only goes so far. That only goes so far when the media and fans start to say, yeah, I don't know that I want this guy around anymore. And Russell Westbrook is now becoming the face of the Nuggets sputtering towards the end of this season. When at no point during this season was Russell Westbrook ever brought up as a problem. It has been everyone else on the Nuggets roster. It's like I think Gordon and Jokic are the only three guys that I can recall that don't really shoulder any of the blame for anything bad that happens to the Denver Nuggets. And quickly, Russell Westbrook is now becoming the face of it, the symbol, the microcosm, if you will. The Nuggets are trending in the wrong direction. And they are a team, and I'll talk about the Avs coming up next. Again, I think you have to take a wider view approach of everything. The Nuggets are sputtering towards the finish line in a season that has brought up some serious doubts about their championship contention. So this is a team that I think needed to show some things down the stretch going into the postseason. And now they are 4-6 in their last 10 games. They've lost back-to-back games. They're dropping to the 4 seed, which, if you look at the matchup, would steer them clear of Minnesota. But Michael Malone talked about his biggest fear is them dropping into the play-in. And with 5 games left, a play-in spot is only 2.5 games away. So their margin is getting thinner with these back-to-back losses. And Russell Westbrook is only adding right now to the nerves that people have about this basketball team. And he really, for what he's done this year, he really should be one of the things you look at and say, I believe in that. And that's what makes all of this, kind of ridiculous in my mind. Because you know what his Laker tenure was like. You know the end of his Oklahoma City time. Like, we haven't even gotten close to that here. Nobody here in Colorado has turned on Russell Westbrook. And yet he's defaulting to this behavior that he had in these other places where he took far much more heat, far much more blame, and was a much bigger scapegoat than he has been made out to be here at any point. I think Michael Malone needs to have a conversation with him and just say, hey, we don't need this. Everything is good. Don't curl up, don't turtle up here. We need positivity. We need you out there being the guy that you've been. This is not a good pattern that is emerging, and it is a familiar pattern. I have seen how this ends. And he is pulling the ripcord way too early here. Nuggets tomorrow night play in San Francisco. Perhaps this will bring him out with less Denver media on hand. It's not good. It's not what you want to see coming down the stretch of a season that the Nuggets need to get a little uptick before they get into the playoffs. 719-247-1313. You could text in your thoughts. Coming up next, speaking of a team that is sputtering as of late, the Colorado Avalanche last night, I think kind of overcorrected. I'll explain next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. As DeAndre Jordan just said, you may have seen this already today, but wanted to make sure that I spread the word the best that I can. Saturday's Switchbacks match with New Mexico United has been postponed because of the forecasted weather. It will be made up September 24th. So don't get rid of those tickets that you may have just yet, but do know that there will be no Switchbacks match on Saturday. Spread the word, tell your friends, and make other plans for Saturday. The Final Four is on Saturday, and that's what we will now have on Extra Sports 1300, actually, since no Switchbacks broadcast either. So Switchbacks postponed early in the season, unpredictable and not potentially great weather coming in. I understand why they made this call now, and I'll have to wait a little bit for the Marco Micheletto revenge game, which I was going to dub Saturday's game. Even talked to Marco about it. Unfortunately, he was not with the idea of it being a revenge game because he very much likes his former teammates, but that won't stop me. So no Switchbacks game on Saturday. Now, Avalanche last night. I think they overcorrected, and here's what I mean by that. The idea, given what has happened the last few games, was for the Avalanche to take what they had been doing in the first two periods of these games and just apply it to the third, right? Just kind of see the game out. Last night, they did essentially the opposite. They did nothing for two periods. I suppose a sliver of credit would go to Spencer Knight. They did get a little bit goalie last night, but I saw, and I think you saw, an Avs team that was not really humming along in those first two periods. And then they turn in the third period, all of a sudden, bang, Cale Makar scores a goal, and the Avs do to the Blackhawks what teams have been doing to them lately. Marty Necas gets a goal with 10 seconds left in regulation to tie the game, so point. And then they get another one by winning the shootout. I think what you're seeing with this team, and I would lump in the Denver Nuggets with this too, we just need the regular season to be done. Like, we need to fast forward a little bit and just get on with it, because neither one of these teams are sprinting through the finish line. But as I've said, if you zoom out a little bit and look at the year in its totality, and even the way that the Avalanche have played post-trade deadline, it paints a better picture than even what you see with the Denver Nuggets, right? Because the Nuggets have dropped some of these important games over the last month or so. I will acknowledge that history will tell you that a decent finish to the season is welcome if you have your eyes set on Lord Stanley's Cup. The last 5 Stanley Cup champions have finished out the season with records ranging from 6-4 to 8-2. But again, Avs are 11-4 over the last month. They look dominant against LA, a fellow playoff team, a week ago. So I still think there's time for the Avs to kind of calibrate here in the last couple of weeks of the season. Now, tonight against Columbus may be difficult because they weren't able to get out of Chicago until this morning. So we'll see. I'd be interested to see how the Avs start out this game tonight against Columbus. given their travel issues. But you look, they get St. Louis again. Certainly they should get up for that one. They got Vegas. They got LA again. I think there's still time, and there's still some games that I would expect the Avalanche to start looking like the team we saw again just a week ago against LA. So I'm not in panic mode by any stretch for this team's form going into the playoffs. I think what we're seeing is the desperation level from the Avs not really going up where it needs to. Perhaps last night kind of jump-started them. We'll wait and see. But I'm not panicking by any stretch of the imagination, and I certainly think that the Avs have earned more leeway than perhaps their Ball Arena roommates have over the course of this season. Now, that's not to say that given their form over the last week or the last month, that Dallas in a 7-game series is now still a nervy proposition, right? Goalie advantage goes to Dallas. If they have Miro Heiskanen, which Pete DeBoer says he expects Heiskanen to come back before the playoffs start, they're certainly a team that can make things uncomfortable for the Avs forwards. Still might not be the best matchup for Colorado. But if they were to lose a series like that, I don't think it will be because they failed to rise to the occasion. I think it will just be the matchup with Dallas and how good Dallas is. Now, what if I told you that the Avs may not play Dallas in the first round? Would that be something you'd be interested in? Because don't look now, but after Winnipeg coughed up another game the other night, the Stars are just 4 points back of Winnipeg with the game in hand after Dallas has rattled off 6 wins in a row. Dallas down the stretch has the more difficult teams on their schedule as opposed to Winnipeg, but they get 5 of them at home, including their last matchup with Winnipeg, which essentially it boils down to this. Stars don't fall off a cliff. They beat Winnipeg at home, and they win the game in hand. They're going to win the division. And if you gave me the choice of the Avalanche going against playoff Jake Ottinger or playoff Connor Hellebuck, I'm going to go with the latter. And I'm trying to not be necessarily a prisoner of what happened last year in the playoffs, because I do think a new year, obviously different coach, things have changed with both Winnipeg and certainly with Colorado. So I'm not trying to be beholden to that, but Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs still raises some questions. And Winnipeg, talking about the blue line, Neil Pionk, Luke Schenn, both banged up. And I don't think their blue line is better than Dallas's, even fully healthy. So no matter how confident you feel about the Avalanche potentially meeting the Dallas Stars, I think you have to feel a little bit more confident in the Avs going against Winnipeg. But certainly both of these series are going to be incredibly difficult. Neither of these series are going to be easy for the Colorado Avalanche. But if you ask me, Avs shouldn't be playing either one of these teams. Their matchup, if the season ended today, should be LA. It should be a 4-5 matchup with the Avs having home ice. The way that the NHL sets up these playoffs should be scrapped. 1 through 8 is just fine. And it's not just strictly, looking at from the Avs perspective. Think about Winnipeg and Dallas. Think about the stakes for those two teams. Here are the potential matchups. If you win the Central, you'll play Minnesota, who right now is tied with St. Louis, but I would expect the way St. Louis is playing to pass Minnesota. So you win the division, you would get the top seed in the West, and you would take on the last wild card team in, which would be, I think, Minnesota. If you don't win your division, your reward is you play the Avalanche. So trust me, in Dallas and Winnipeg, they're sweating a bit over their first round matchup, just like I am with the Colorado Avalanche. This manufactured, and I think the other night against Minnesota for the Nuggets is a great example of this. The best rivalries are not manufactured. The best drama is not manufactured drama, despite what reality television will tell you. Look at what's happening with the Nuggets and the Wolves. This is completely organic. What we're seeing between these two teams. The league isn't doing anything in order to manipulate the matchups or to set up anything. This is naturally occurring. And that's why it's so great. Well, you look on the NHL side, and the NHL is clearly trying to manufacture rivalries, manufacture drama. Oh, let's put LA and Edmonton against each other for the 18th straight season. Like, you don't need it. Let it naturally occur. 1 through 8 is a superior postseason format to what the NHL has. But Gary Bettman was asked about it. He's not changing his mind anytime soon. So Dallas or Winnipeg, I think the matchup with Winnipeg would be a little bit more advantageous for the Colorado Avalanche. One more Avs thing, and it is now, especially at this point in the season, going to get to daily Gabriel Landeskog updates. Eric Johnson last night on TNT said now it's a matter of when, not if, Gabriel Landeskog comes back. And Gabriel Landeskog has said something similar in the past, but you understand when it comes from him, it's as much for his own motivation as it is him, making a promise to his teammates in the fan base. When you hear it from one of his teammates, I think you take it a little bit differently and maybe put a little bit more stock into it. Now, I've said I'm there. Gabriel Landeskog's playing again. I was the last holdout. But when? What is the when? Right? If we all are past the if part of this, when is the when? Because obviously the ideal scenario is to get him back out on the ice before the playoffs begin. Because as welcome as Gabriel Landeskog would be back with the Colorado Avalanche, he's now a massive variable. This isn't like what the Knights have done with Mark Stone, right? Like Landeskog has been out for years. And what he means to this organization, this is not a little thing. This is not just an easy guy to put back in the lineup. And I'm not talking about him as a player or a leader or anything like that. I'm just saying that when Gabriel Landeskog comes back, it's going to be huge news. it's going to be all anyone wants to talk about. And you're having to do this on top potentially of game planning for Winnipeg or Dallas, an incredibly difficult first round matchup. The ideal scenario is to get him back before the playoffs begin. But as his recovery has shown, there is very little that can be controlled in all of this. I think I don't see how it becomes any kind of drop dead date if he's not back by. I mean, obviously, if he's not activated for the postseason, he could still be activated at any point during the playoffs. He doesn't have to be activated for game one of round one. But to me, the further it goes along, the more complicated it becomes. And it gets more difficult to put Gabriel Landeskog in on the fly when you're in the Western Conference Finals or if you're in a Stanley Cup final. Now, it might be a welcome task for Jared Bednar, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come with some complications, right? You bring him back when you're up in a series, when you're down in a series. Do you say if he's not ready for game one of round one, you're going to wait till round two? You're going to break glass in case of emergency. You're down facing elimination and you bring him back. I don't know if the Avs are going to have all of these options available to them. I think he's going to be ready when he's going to be ready. But with what, 6 games left, 7 games left, it would sure, I think, make things a little bit easier if he made his long-awaited return in that docu-series wrapped up before the regular season came to an end. But okay, we'll take the Condors' word for it. It's when, not if. So when is when. 719-24-7, 1313. Coming up next, the conversation at the top of the NFL draft has started to become, who would you rather have, Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders? I'll pose that question to you next on Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow, tickets go on sale for Tom Segura's Come Together Tour, which is coming to Colorado Springs on Sunday, November 9th at 7 p.m. You could pick up your tickets a couple of different ways. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., you can either go online to axs.com or you could stop by the Pikes Peak Center box office. Couple of texts, 719-24-7. 13-13. Mentioned earlier, Switchbacks game getting postponed. Tom says, so we're postponing games ahead of a weather forecast by a guy that's right 50% of the time. Only job in history of time that you can keep by succeeding 50% of the time besides an MLB DH. And I don't have, and every time I say this, I'm like, I should have more inside information. I think it's a combination of how early it is in the season and that there's still plenty of time to make up games. I think because of the regional appeal of this, there are fans down in Albuquerque who always make the trip up. The team is going to make a trip up I-25. They might be busing it. I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be nice outside. I mean, we could agree on this, but I think there are a lot of other things that came into play. Back to Russell Westbrook, who again refused to meet with the media after last night's Nuggets loss, in which he missed a fast break layup after a steal again at a crucial juncture of the game as the Nuggets lose to the Spurs. Here's an interesting suggestion, and I always think that other than when it comes to playoff formats, hockey can be looked at as the way to go in a lot of things. And this might be onto something. From the 719, in the NHL, a few guys are scratched before every game. They put a suit on and discover the joys of life in the press box. I don't know how the NBA works, but Russ Westbrook, and I don't think that was voice to text or autocorrect, Russ Westbrook should be scratched. Such a thing does exist. And I think load management, it exists in the NBA. So it would not appear weird to anybody to see Russell Westbrook in street clothes for the next game. So the apparatus is in place. But doesn't that almost compound the issue as well? Perpetuate the story? I guess it's just a matter of whether you think, look, I'm not going to say that Russell Westbrook should be benched because of his play. The guy had 30, 11, and 6 last night. But do you scratch him? Do you sit him down because he's a little bit torqued off right now and maybe he needs some time to cool down? Or do you take it a step further and say that this is a disciplinary thing with him? I don't think that the Nuggets, even though I would suggest Michael Malone say something to Russell Westbrook about how this is unnecessary, I don't know that we've gotten to the level where he needs to be disciplined for this. But you might be onto something. It may not be a bad idea for Russell Westbrook to just take a seat. I think the problem you're going to have is because of the problem that he has created, it's going to look like he's being punished. And I don't think that's what the Nuggets want either. I think the best thing is just for Russell Westbrook, as much as this should have been last night, this absolutely should have been last night. No matter what happens Friday against Golden State, meet with the media. Talk about it. There will be less Denver media there, but answer the questions, put this story to bed, and move on. He is causing more of an issue. He's making it a bit, what happened the other night, a bigger issue than you or I are. I said we can say that he blew it against Minnesota and still acknowledge that Russell Westbrook has been a net positive for the Denver Nuggets. But by refusing to speak to the media, after, by the way, you had another similar incident, thankfully, I don't think he yelled at any fans on the way off the court. And that's also part of this. He's making a bigger deal of it than it needs to be. And he's pulling the ripcord too soon. He did this kind of stuff in Oklahoma City and LA, and it was the beginning of the end for him there. Don't do it here. It's too early. And it's not the time of year to be doing this either. Get out there on Friday, on the court, dunk the ball for God's sakes. No more layups. Meet the media, put this thing to bed, and move on for the last week of the season in the playoffs. This is on him. He's making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. Some NFL draft conversation here before the top of the hour. Adam Schefter putting out today that it's looking more and more, as we are 3 weeks away from the NFL draft, it's looking more and more like both Cleveland and New York are not going quarterback with picks 2 and 3. And New York has certainly been linked to Travis Hunter more than Cleveland is, which I don't totally understand. Why wouldn't Cleveland want Travis Hunter? To me, Travis Hunter is the best player in this draft. And the only way that you can seriously have a conversation about passing on these two quarterbacks, or one of these two quarterbacks, as it were, because I believe both of them have the potential to be franchise quarterbacks. But that's the end of the list, by the way. So if either of these teams, Cleveland or New York, come back later with a Jackson Dart or a Kyle McCord, they're not gaming the system. They're not manipulating the draft board, playing it the way they should. This is not the running back position. There are two quarterbacks in this draft. So I don't want Cleveland to go Abdul Carter at 2 and then come back later with Kyle McCord and be celebrating that they won the draft, or people saying that they won the draft, because there are only two quarterbacks. Anything else is a flyer, including Jackson Dart. The only player that I think, especially for Cleveland, like, I understand it's appealing, the idea of putting Abdul Carter on one side and Myles Garrett on the other. But you do already have Myles Garrett. And you think that he signed the extension with the promise that he's going to have Abdul Carter on the other side? Actually, let me phrase it this way. Let me put it a different way. What do you think Myles Garrett wants more? Do you think he wants help on the other side of the football, or the other side of the line of scrimmage, or do you think he wants a quarterback? Ask Myles Garrett what he would rather have. I think he'd say quarterback. And you have Cleveland, and both of them, it doesn't make, the only player that I think that you can really have this conversation is Travis Hunter, just because of how unique he is. And I would understand every team in the top 5 that needs a quarterback seriously contemplating just taking Travis Hunter, because there is a much lower bust rate with Travis Hunter than there could potentially be Cam Ward and Shedeur. And that's not on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. That's on their organizations. Because you look at Tennessee, you look at New York, you look at Cleveland, and certainly you wonder about the structure around these two quarterbacks and whether they can get it right. I actually honestly think that Cleveland might be best equipped out of those 3 teams to welcome in a young quarterback and be able to do the right things to develop him. So the more and more I talk, the less and less it makes sense actually for Cleveland to pass on Shedeur more than New York. It doesn't make sense for either. But with Cleveland, in recent days, Jimmy Haslam has admitted that they swung and missed with Deshaun Watson. So he's done. I don't know who is holding out for the Deshaun Watson reclamation tour, but that thing is over. Okay, they're admitting it as soon as it's even remotely viable, salary cap wise, which would be after this upcoming season. Deshaun Watson will no longer be a member of the Cleveland Browns. And now you have Kenny Pickett. Say what you will about Russell Wilson, and I have said a lot about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, I would take over Kenny Pickett any day of the week. And if Cleveland is going to not take a quarterback, and they're going to, instead of drafting Travis Hunter, take Abdul Carter. And this is not a knock on Abdul Carter at all. It's just you got to evaluate the needs on your roster. Again, Travis Hunter is the only player that I have this conversation about if I'm a quarterback needy team, especially one that has Myles freaking Garrett on the team. I don't understand. The only explanation is that these two teams have Shedeur Sanders rated much lower than I do, or that many people do. There are some that are doubting Shedeur Sanders, but there's a lot of people, just as many people, that love Shedeur Sanders. So I don't think he's as controversial of a prospect as some people might lead you to believe. A lot of people like Shedeur. You know who likes Shedeur? Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns. This has got to be a smokescreen, or trying to bait somebody to come up and trade up, because it just does not make sense for the Giants and the Browns to pass on Shedeur Sanders. And it makes even less sense for Cleveland than it does New York. 719-24-7-1313. Coming up next, Nikola Jokic called a top 20 player in NBA history by perhaps the most unlikely of backers. I'll tell you who next on Extra Sports 1300. Drive Time Sports on this Thursday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening or whether you're doing a combination of listening and watching on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports. 1300 coming up at the top of this hour, about 58 minutes away from our coverage of the Avs and Blue Jackets from Columbus. So that's coming up this evening. 719-24-7, 1313 is the number if you would like to text into the show. It is quite remarkable what we have been seeing from Nikola Jokic as of late. And what may be more remarkable is the effect it's having on certain media members. Today, I watched First Take have a debate where more of their panelists than not said that Nikola Jokic already is one of the top 20 players in NBA history. Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins said that Nikola Jokic is already a top 20 NBA player of all time. The only holdout was one of the Morris brothers, who, while I thought he was very eloquent in his response, I don't think he was saying anything completely out of hand to dismiss that idea. You do remember that Nikola Jokic has had his tussles with that family. So you wonder about it, but you know what? I'm not going to, there are always going to be differing opinions. The one thing when it comes to Nikola Jokic, you can't be like everyone must agree on everything about Nikola Jokic all the time. Okay, if it's the MVP, do I think that Nikola Jokic should be a unanimous MVP? I'm having a hard time seeing why he shouldn't be. But especially in a debate like this, where we're not even to the end of his career yet. I think this kind of a discussion, it's okay that there are dissenting opinions. We don't have to single out everybody who doesn't have the highest opinion of Nikola Jokic. We can allow for dissenting opinions. And I think this conversation is absolutely one of those, because this is a big conversation. And this is a difficult conversation to have. This is not this year, right? This year's a much easier time frame to define and say this year, is he the most valuable player? Yes. But we're talking about taking his entire career into account and taking the entire history of the National Basketball Association into account. So first and foremost, it's just wild hearing this come from Stephen A. Smith, who just a couple weeks ago said there's literally nothing. It doesn't matter what Nikola Jokic does when it comes to the MVP. He's going to give it to Shea. And then you have Kendrick Perkins, who introduced the most toxic conversation I have ever heard surrounding an individual award just a couple of years ago. So is Nikola Jokic already a top 20 player of all time? I mapped this out. Follow me. Walk with me on this, because I think not only is saying Nikola Jokic is a top 20 player all time not a hot take, I think you can make an argument he's already top 15. Walk with me. Okay, top 11. And why top 11 instead of top 10? Because the debate between Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain has been going on for as long as those two have been since they've been in the NBA. That is one of the great basketball debates. I would go Russell over Wilt, but they are always linked together. They're always compared. I have 11 players that right now, Nikola Jokic, there's no way Nikola Jokic is greater than at this moment in his career. And what I mean by that is taking into account his whole career, right? It took him a couple of seasons to get going, right? He didn't come out of the gate as a rookie and was playing like this. And that's what makes this discussion so difficult, is that hasn't had a 10-year decorated career. It's been the last 5 or 6. So Jordan, LeBron, Magic, Kareem, Kobe, Shaq, Bird, Duncan, Steph, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. I think at this moment in time, even the most ardent Nikola Jokic supporters would say, yeah, right now, not better than that list. There's another 3 players that I think I would put above Nikola Jokic at this moment in time. Jerry West, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Oscar Robertson. So those are 14 players that I am pretty, the top 11 I'm definitely at. The next 3 I'm pretty solid on. Couldn't you slide Nikola Jokic into spot 15? Here are the other names you would consider for that spot. Dirk Nowitzki. And this is in no particular order. These are just other names that when I write up the top 20 NBA players of all time. Dirk. I think Jokic right now would be above Dirk. Karl Malone. Moses Malone. Kevin Durant. Charles Barkley. And Dr. J. If I'm missing somebody that I should consider for spot 15 on the list, let me know. But that's the next group that I mapped out. What we have with Nikola Jokic is not a full career, right? But how do we decide Hall of Famers a lot? We go to their peak, right? We go to their peak. And right now we are at the peak of Nikola Jokic, which hopefully will extend years beyond this one. But we can take his peak right now. 3 MVPs, should be a 4th. The greatest statistical season in the history of the NBA. NBA champion, NBA Finals MVP, and the best player for a 4 or 5 year stretch in the NBA. I think that would put him above the Malones, Dirk, KD, Barkley, and Dr. J. I think Nikola Jokic right now is a top 15 player in NBA history. Now, what does he need to ascend? And I talked about this yesterday. He needs another ring. He needs another ring. He's not. I don't think Nikola Jokic is ever going to be on the Mount Rushmore. Okay, so you start to set his ceiling. He's not going to surpass Jordan. He's not going to surpass LeBron or Magic or Kareem. I just don't. I don't think that will happen. He's not going to be a Mount Rushmore guy. Kobe, Shaq, Bird, Duncan, Steph, Russell, excuse me. He needs another ring. He's not getting into that group without at least one more ring. And it is ring. Because here's the thing, far be it from me to ever agree with Kendrick Perkins. I think we can still award him MVPs and still have the bigger conversation. He can do both. We could do both with Nikola Jokic. And what he wants to do is to take Nikola Jokic completely out of the MVP conversation in perpetuity. Nikola Jokic never wins another MVP. But he does want to have the conversation of where Nikola Jokic would rank. And the one thing I agree with him on is that, and listening to the discussion today between them, no amount of MVPs, no realistic amount of MVPs, right? He's not. I know right now in the moment it feels like he's going to win the next 10 MVPs. He's not going to, right? I don't know that another couple of MVPs is going to put him in that the first column I have on mine. I think he needs championships to get into that level. More MVPs could get him past Oscar, could get him past Hakeem, could get him past Jerry West. Could get him past Wilt. I think quite possibly he could. But Bill Russell, Steph Curry, Tim Duncan, Larry Bird, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. That is a group that you can only buy your way in with more championships. And I think, again, with the idea he will never be a Mount Rushmore guy. But I think with another title, I think we can start to have conversations about some of these other people, most notably Bill Russell and Shaquille O'Neal. More his position. I think we are trending in a direction where Nikola Jokic is going to be the greatest center to ever play the game. But when you talk about top players all time, Duncan, power forward, Larry Bird, small forward, Kobe, shooting guard, Kareem. Where do you say Kareem? Kareem be center? Second best center of all time? I think the only way that Nikola Jokic can get into the conversation of being in the top 10, I think he's in the top 15. I think he has a chance to be knocking on the door of the top 10. But the only thing that I can ever see getting him into the top 10 is at least one more title, and maybe not that. And then we're talking about how far up the top 10. But even some of the most ardent Jokic disbelievers are now like, yeah, he's in the bigger conversation. Think about the names I threw out there to include even if you didn't think that he was better than Moses or Karl Malone or Charles Barkley at this stage in his career, just the fact that he's on that list with them, pretty remarkable. 719-247-1313. Where would you put Nikola Jokic right now on the all-time list? I got him top 15. I got him at number 15. More Drive Time Sports after this. Join me Monday as I broadcast the show live from Trainwreck for the National Championship game. Come by, enjoy some outstanding food and beverage, take advantage of 2 acres of indoor and outdoor entertainment, and stick around to watch the National Championship game on their stadium-sized TV. That's Monday at 3, Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre. Tonight, Avs taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. And this will be a matchup of 2 of the better defensemen in the league, Zach Werenski against Cale Makar. And it brings into focus the Norris Trophy race, which we shouldn't, Cale Makar, I think there's a group of 3 players right now in Colorado sports that I think we should remind ourselves every once in a while to not get complacent with the greatness we are seeing. They are Nikola Jokic, Nathan MacKinnon, and Cale Makar. And the fact that the Colorado Avalanche have 2 of those guys is pretty remarkable. But I feel like because Cale Makar does what Cale Makar does, it's just, it becomes, and perhaps in a way, Cale Makar, I think, compares a little bit more to Nikola Jokic than Nathan MacKinnon. And what I mean by that is we're seeing such a unique player for the position that they're at, right? We have not seen, forget the top 20, top 15, top 10 debates with Nikola Jokic. We haven't seen a center combine the skills that Nikola Jokic possesses. And again, there's only one other defenseman in the history of the NHL that combines the different things that Cale Makar does, and that's Bobby Orr. And we could debate who's better, who's greater. Obviously, Cale Makar has a long way to go before he's going to catch Bobby Orr, but he's on that track. With Nathan MacKinnon, he's great. He's just below Connor McDavid in the pecking order for the best players in the world. But what Nathan MacKinnon is as a hockey player, we have seen. Like, he may be doing it better than 95% of the people who have ever done it. But Cale Makar is so unique for his position. And because he is so unique, because he puts up these numbers that right and left wingers would be jealous of, it's just the Norris Trophy is just like, oh, whatever. Of course he's going to win the Norris Trophy. No, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And part of him potentially one day in the distant future being on par with Bobby Orr to be truly in that conversation with Bobby Orr, he's got to win more Norris trophies. And yes, I think he's going to win it this year. I do. And he scored his 29th goal of the season last night. It helped spur the Avs to their third period comeback. But the fact that he keeps winning these and will win another one, as we sit and say, how dare anyone give the NBA MVP to anyone but Nikola Jokic? That same energy should kind of be applied to Cale Makar and the Norris Trophy. I get it. It's not the trophy that players that we talk about or that players strive for. I mean, defensemen do, but you get my point. There is a trophy above that, which is the Hart Trophy. And I do think that there will be a day where Cale Makar is a finalist for the Hart Trophy and maybe win one. But for right now, you can't grow tired of the fact that Cale Makar has year in and year out been, if not number one, 1B every year in terms of defensemen. And tonight you're going to be able to see one of the other, just like when we always talk about him going up against Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, he's going to go up against one tonight in Zach Werenski, who has had a terrific season, will be a Norris Trophy finalist. But he will not beat out Cale Makar for that award. I feel like the Norris Trophy has been so in the back, so much on the back burner of all the conversations. It's Nathan McKinnon in the Hart Trophy. It's Nikola Jokic in the MVP. It's these two teams chasing titles. And I'm not saying that those other stories aren't more important potentially than the Norris Trophy, but let's not forget how prestigious of an award this is and how amazing it is that Cale Makar truly is the best defenseman in the world and probably doesn't get enough respect for his defensive abilities. But Avs and Blue Jackets coming up tonight, our coverage at the top of the hour. We'll take a break. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Coming up at the top of the hour will be Avs and Jackets here on Extra Sports 1300. A reminder that if you are trying to spend your weekend at Widener Field, that Saturday's game has been postponed with New Mexico United because of the weather and will be made up in September. So no Switchbacks game on Saturday in case you have not seen that. Let's go the text line at 719-247-1313. Dave says, don't leave out PS2 as a top-tier athlete for Colorado teams. And that is a very good point. That Pat Surtain, I think we're I know he's closer to Cale Makar in terms of experience, but yeah, I think now, given that he is won Defensive Player of the Year, which is something that we don't see players in the secondary get that often. I think very much. And you think about Pat Surtain, especially this year, he's highlighted how he can kind of affect the game from an offensive perspective or a point scoring perspective, right? The interception, the pick six he had against the Raiders, which I think really sparked the Broncos season. That was certainly, I mean, he doesn't do that as much as Cale Makar scores goals, but still, like, he's not, he's a defender plus. Absolutely. I think Pat Surtain needs to be mentioned in that group. Certainly, he has not been playing for as long as the other guys that I mentioned, but he now has certainly arrived on that level as well. And we may be watching one of the best corners in NFL history playing at Empower Field and then wherever they build the next stadium. From the 719, forget or Makar is more like a Paul Coffey, lines up at the blue line for faceoffs, but that's where he and any legitimate defenseman part company. He's more of a rover. He gets back most of the time, but will get caught up ice sometimes. I think Cale Makar's defensive ability, I'm not saying that what you have there never happens. And Paul Coffey, hey, look, Paul Coffey's pretty great company to be in as well. But I think you may be selling Cale Makar's defensive ability a little bit short. And part of what allows him to get more up in the play is playing with Devontae's. I think when they need Cale Makar to defend, I think he's there to defend. I think just the luxury that he has with Devontae's being more of a stay-at-home defenseman. But could we split the difference a little bit and say right now Cale Makar on a Paul Coffey, more in that conversation, and then Bobby Orr's the more aspirational. But I think you look at team success, you look at individual success, you look at Norris trophies. I think what Cale Makar is doing I think Bobby Orr is going to eventually be the comp. I do. And many people are already using it, obviously, but I think he has the chance to be a speed debating best defenseman of all time, Bobby Orr or Cale Makar. Again, we're talking with Jokic, with Surtain. All these guys, Jokic, Surtain, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon. I mean, they all have a ways to go. But I've seen it watching. Obviously, wasn't in Bobby Orr's era, but I've went back and watched Bobby Orr games, highlights, read about him, heard other people that have seen both talk about it, and I think Paul Coffey's a good comparison, but I think what we're going for is Bobby Orr, and I think he's got the ability to do that. From the 719, his first 2 years, everyone said move him to forward. I think he's gotten better, but I also think his first 2 years make it seem that way. He definitely isn't the best defenseman. So you're saying that because defensively he wasn't very good his first couple of years, that by comparison it makes it seem like Cale Makar is a better defenseman than he really is? Or is it more that people discount his defensive ability because the first 2 years in the league? I again look at Devon Toews and say, what are you asking Cale Makar to do? He's being asked to join the rush a lot, and Devon Toews is being asked to stay home. I think that Cale Makar, is Cale Makar the best defensive defenseman in the NHL? No, he's not the best defensive defenseman, but he certainly plays a high enough level of defense, plus all of his offensive prowess, if you will. You combine those two things, and that's why he is basically the front runner for the Norris Trophy every year from here on out, and somebody has to beat him, which can happen. Yeah, maybe with Cale Makar and where he is on his defense, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't think that he's an elite defensive defenseman. I don't. But he has, to your point, come a long way from the first couple of years where it's like, why is this guy even he's a forward masquerading as a defenseman? No, he's become a full-blown defenseman. And just with a player like Devon Toews, he's being given free rein to maybe not defend as much. I think the playoffs will be a great kind of reintroduction to Cale Makar, the defender, because obviously time and space is taken away. It's a tighter checking game. Defense becomes even more important. And I think you'll see Cale Makar commit defensively a little bit more than he does during the regular season. But the bigger point is the fact that the Avs have the best of something. Like the Broncos have the best corner and the Nuggets have the best player. And I think it even speaks to the text that came in about don't forget PS2, because right now, and can you think, and it wasn't that long ago that Travis Hunter was a Colorado athlete. I guess still technically is until he is drafted by an NFL team. But there are just so many outstanding athletes, not just the best that we've seen in those positions in team history. It's like some of the best players that have ever played for a franchise. Right? Jokic is already there. I think Nathan McKinnon has only, I think he only has Sakic to pass. Is Nathan McKinnon above Sakic yet? I don't think so. But he's climbing that list. He's very close. I would say Cale Makar has a ways to go. And Pat Surtain, if you want to look for arguably the best corner of all time, it's somebody that would right now be above Pat Surtain in the greatest corners in the history of the Broncos, right? Champ Bailey. And then you have Travis Hunter, who, at least from a talent perspective, you go, he might be one of the most talented college football players ever. And all at the same time. And when that happens, some conversation, some players get shoved off to the side. And once in a while, you bring him back up. And with Cale Makar going against Zach Werenski tonight, it brings it back up. Oh, yeah. Cale Makar. And you know what, kind of spurred this conversation was the Columbus Blue Jackets on their website writing about how big this matchup is. I think most people here would not think very much of a matchup with the Blue Jackets. But for them, it's huge because it's the guy they think deserves the Norris Trophy against the favorite or against the guy that is at least viewed as the best defenseman. So it was actually an article from the Blue Jackets that I went, oh, yeah, Zach Werenski's in this mix as well. And more importantly, I mean, I knew Werenski played for the Blue Jackets, but more like, oh, this is a huge deal for Columbus to have Werenski going against Cale Makar all at once. And we're sitting here hand-wringing over the perceived inability of the Avalanche or the Denver Nuggets to become a dynasty. So spoiled we are in Colorado sports right now. Good points, good conversation. Shout out to Trey McBride, by the way. A couple of players getting paid today in the NFL. Trey McBride, former CSU Ram, being paid the most of any tight end in the NFL. Good for him. And then I know people are going to read into this more than it needs to be. Geno Smith getting a contract extension. I really think a lot of the Geno Smith stuff in Vegas is about them not thinking they can get Shedeur or Cam Ward, whichever one they like better, a quarterback. I think they wanted Geno Smith. I think they wanted Geno Smith regardless, but I think people are going to look at this extension and go, oh, see, they're out of the quarterback business. No. They're not out of the quarterback business. If Shedeur falls to them at 6, they're going to take him. But you gotta have someone in house just in case you can't. And I'm still not 100% sold on the idea that Shedeur's even going to drop out of the top 3. I'm not moved yet when it comes to that. I think Cleveland and New York I think it's part of just the time of year that we're at. We've kind of talked ourselves around all of these prospects and all of these draft scenarios. I think we eventually get our way back. I think usually our first instinct is right when it comes to the draft. Especially if you follow college football, you follow these teams, what they need. I think a lot of times you have to be a little bit wary of the fast risers and the players that are falling in people's minds, because we talk ourselves 18 different ways in and out of all of these guys, and we're 3 weeks away. For Cleveland and New York to both pass on Shedeur. By the way, Shedeur's pro day is tomorrow. So this normal part of the process in which we get intel from NFL insiders on what teams thought of guys at pro day, we haven't even had that with Shedeur yet. I think it was Peter Schrager was talking on ESPN about this. Like, hold on here. Like, we haven't even gone through the full draft process for Shedeur Sanders, and already people are burying him. It'll be interesting to see next week if Shedeur starts to get a little bit of a bump. If all of a sudden you hear a team in the top 5 that's interested in Shedeur, or a team that's interested in moving into the top 5 that's interested in Shedeur, I would not be surprised. Because I think Shedeur's going to look great, right? Because who doesn't look great at a pro day? I think we'll hear some things. I think Shedeur's stock will start to go back up to where it should be after his pro day. He and Travis Hunter tomorrow in Boulder. That is it, and that is all. Gotta love these starts in the Eastern time zone. Appreciate the interaction. Appreciate your patronage as well. No show tomorrow. The women's Final Four will be tomorrow. Saturday, the men's Final Four. Women's championship on Sunday. Men's championship on Monday. And I will be out at Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre for that occasion. Hope to see you out there. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend and enjoy Zach Werenski against Cale Makar. Avs Jackets next.